Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Abbey. I'm an adult services librarian for the city of Forest Grove, and I want to welcome you all to our live stream presentation tonight with Kelly Bulkeley called Perchance to Dream, Unlocking the Mysteries of Our Nightly Visions. Before I bring Kelly on, I want to just remind you about one of our upcoming live stream programs in January. This is our final program for 2020, and we appreciate everyone following us here on Facebook or on YouTube. In January, on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, we're very excited to welcome Oregon's 10th and most recent poet laureate, Anis Mojani. He'll be on hand to read some of his poems, tell some stories, and to chat with everyone. Again, that's going to be live on Facebook and YouTube Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. I think it'll be a really great opportunity to interact with Anis, who is just a really, really cool guy. And we're very fortunate to have him as one of our live stream guests this year. You may remember last year we had booked Kim Stafford to appear in the library in person, but because of COVID we had to cancel that, and we were fortunate enough to spend some time with Kim and record some of his poems and to chat with him a little bit. But Anis will be available in January, and we're really looking forward to having him be a part of our live stream offerings in 2021. So more about those later on as they start to firm up. We're really pleased tonight to have with us Kelly Bulkeley. Kelly is a dream researcher, a psychologist of religion, and author of numerous books on dreaming. He's the director of the Sleep and Dream Database, which is a digital archive and search engine designed for open exploration. He earned a doctorate in religion and psychological studies from the University of Chicago Divinity School, an MTS from Harvard Divinity School, and a BA from Stanford University. Kelly's the former president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and he's a senior editor for the APA journal Dreaming. And he's also written and edited numerous books on dream research, and also has a blog on Psychology Today that deals with topics related to dreams as well. Kelly lives in Portland, and so we're very fortunate to have him kind of in our own backyard to chat with you tonight. I do want to remind you that one of the really great things about live streaming is that it's completely interactive. So if at any point tonight during Kelly's talk you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. We'll have some time at the end of the evening to go through some of those. And really anything is fair game tonight, although probably not going to get into a whole lot of dream analysis. So if you're wondering why you had that dream about a rabbit and a Volkswagen, I don't know if you're going to get much much help there. But if you have some other questions about dreams and some of the things that Kelly's talking about tonight, please put those in the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end of the evening. So I'm going to bring Kelly into the stream. Hi, Kelly.
Hey there.
Welcome to our live stream. I'm going to step out and turn everything over to you, and then I'll be back when you're done, and we'll go through some of our questions. So
Right.
Enjoy.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share some time with you. Right. Okay. So now you're going to get the full vision of my study here. I wasn't expecting that exactly. Okay. So you're going to see some cats meandering by. I can't control them, so that's just going to be what it's going to be. But this is a delight to be able to spend some time with you and talk a bit about what's going on with the study of dreams from various perspectives. As Bob said, I have a training primarily through religious studies programs, but I followed that route because, for reasons I'll share with you, that enabled me to study dreams in the most multidisciplinary and kind of interesting way, I thought, and doing most justice to the multiplicity of our dreaming experience. So before really getting going, what I'd like to start with is to invite you to just take a moment and think about, bring back to mind a particular dream. It could be a dream from last night, from several weeks ago, from childhood, maybe a dream that just strikes you as especially memorable and vivid. And just bring it, whatever comes to mind in that regard. I mean, it's a horrible nightmare and you don't want to get into that, that's fine. But if you have that dream kind of in mind, what I'd like you to do is keep that as kind of a companion as I speak with you tonight, and as we get into some question and answer and some discussion. My hope is that at some point I'm going to say something that will help you better understand some aspect of that dream. That dream, I think, will be in some ways your test of whether I'm going to share something with you of value and meaning, because most dreams, if you reflect on them even just a little bit from a couple different angles, couple different perspectives, surprising things can emerge, things that you didn't see coming, or that make connections in ways that you hadn't seen before. So just keep that dream in mind. It might be a somewhat recent dream. It's certainly the case, I think, that, again, something we'll talk about in a little while here, that right now, late 2020, as we're several months into a pandemic, many people are experiencing an increase in their dream recall, and it's becoming an interesting phenomenon in terms of how dreaming responds to not just personal issues, but to cultural issues as well, to social issues. So keep whatever dream that you brought to mind with you as I go forth here. What I'd like to do is describe how dream researchers think about the human experience of dreaming in three different kinds of ways. We think about the formation of dreams, how dreams are formed. We think about the function or functions of dreaming, what they do in our lives. And we think about the interpretation of dreams, what they mean, and how we can discern that meaning, how we can understand that meaning. So I'd like to share with you some of the recent findings, as well as some historical traditions and teachings about these three questions: the formation, the function, and the interpretation of dreams. And I think that if by the end of what I've said tonight, you've got a little more clarity around those questions about dreaming, I think you'll have learned something good, because that's, in some ways, this is part of being a human, to dream. This is a finding of modern neuroscience, is that we are all born with kind of the innate hardwiring in our brains for a sleep cycle that generates dreams. So we are all natural dreamers, all humans, all of us, everywhere. And so to learn a little bit about this is kind of like just kind of learning about yourself, just kind of about your natural abilities. And maybe, so that's Strauss in the background there. He's gonna make his presence known. Sorry. So hopefully this will be of some help, not just with this particular dream, but with the general understanding of this universal human phenomenon of dreaming. So starting with formation, how are dreams formed? Where do they come from? What causes dreaming? And it might surprise you to learn that in ancient times, people not only believed that dreams were caused by the visits of gods or spirits, ghosts, demons perhaps, various kinds of supernatural beings. There is widespread belief around the world, various cultures, that dreams are at some level caused by these kinds of supernatural beings visiting us, or actually causing a dream itself, perhaps a nightmare. But it's also true that in many ancient cultures, people also recognize that some dreams are caused just by eating food that gives you indigestion before you go to bed. Dreams might be caused by a fever or by ill health in some other way. Dreams might be caused by an emotionally upsetting experience the previous day. Dreams can also have naturalistic causes. They can also be stimulated or triggered in some ways by experiences in everyday life. So from an early time in human history, there's been a recognition that dreams have potentially multiple sources, that some dreams seem to come from kind of our immediate, that's phantom, okay, so the whole crew. Some dreams are stimulated by the immediate environment, by our daily lives, our ongoing concerns, worries, plans, hopes, and such. And sometimes dreams in those regards can be very realistic. They can just portray kind of what's going on in regular life. Other dreams, though, seem to come from someplace entirely different. Dreams that seem to come from, and again, ancient traditions would teach from ancestral beings, from deities of various kinds, from demonic beings of various kinds, not sometimes good supernatural beings, sometimes really not good supernatural beings. And so dreams in that regard have also been considered through history as a kind of a battleground between humans and other beings in other kinds of realities. This is a widespread belief in many different cultures. And so both of these ideas, these general perspectives, have coexisted over time. And in the present day, and of course I'm telescoping a lot of information here, but in the present day, there's a general consensus that dreaming is an outgrowth of the sleep cycle, and nothing is agreed on by 100% of everybody in the field. So I'm giving you not just my view. I'm trying to give you a representative view of kind of I'd say the general consensus of where the research is pointing. And in terms of the formation of dreams, it seems pretty clear that dreaming is rooted in the sleep cycle that is part of the way our brains are designed by evolution to function, to operate. That healthy human life involves a healthy sleep cycle, and a healthy sleep cycle involves regular surges of brain activity that seem to be associated with dreaming. You may have heard of the difference between what's called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, and non-REM sleep, non-rapid eye movement sleep. These are terms that reflect the variations during the sleep cycle of the brain's activity. It's not like when we go to sleep, the light switch of the brain just switches off, and then we wake up and the light switch switches back on. Actually, when we go to sleep, our brains remain active, sometimes in a kind of quieter mode, but still doing some business. And then at other phases, REM sleep was what we call it, the brain becomes very active. Indeed, it becomes, in terms of its neuroelectrical output, roughly as active as the brain is while we're awake, right here and now. So this is built into the way our sleep cycle works, that our brains are stimulated to that level of activity 3, 4, 5 times a night especially towards the end of the night, towards the latter part of the sleep cycle, the last hour or two of the night. Your typical sleep is going to be especially rich in REM sleep. And dreaming seems to be very closely associated with REM sleep. You wake someone up from REM sleep, and usually they're going to remember a dream, but not always. Sometimes you wake someone up from non-REM sleep, and they remember a dream. Not always. So what I would say, again, this is a debatable point, but my view is that the best way to look at it is that REM sleep is a trigger for dreaming, that REM sleep kind of gets the brain, the mind revved up to a really high degree, and that brings online a variety of mental functions, our emotional system, our instinctual system, our visual imagination, our orienting system, our associational networks, not so much the sort of executive, linear thinking control parts of the brain. That part of the brain tends to be less active in REM sleep and it seems in dreaming too. So all the way is saying that modern researchers have a pretty good idea about the formation of dreaming out of that complex of brain activities during the sleep of all of us. What researchers don't, I would say, have as clear an explanation for are the emergence of unusual dreams that seem to involve sort of the hyperarousal of particular parts of the brain that we can't seem to map in an easy way in a sleep laboratory setting. But the kinds of dreams that Carl Jung called big dreams, that have otherworldly feelings and sensations, kind of hyper-realistic vividness, aspects that are more difficult to explain using just sort of neurological theories and models. So it's, I would say at the moment we still are trying to understand the full range of dreams and how the brain can create these amazing marvels of the imagination. And I think we understand it better and better, but there's still mysteries to be understood and aspects of dreaming that that still seem to elude kind of simplistic analysis. So that's where, again, my interest in the study of religion and anthropology and history. One thing I was actually going to do is I go along here, and this is a library presentation. I thought I would share some books. One of the pros of being able to do this for my study is I get to delve into my library here. So this is a book called New Directions in the Anthropology of Dreaming, edited by Jeanette Marie Maguio and Robin Sharif. Came out like a couple months ago, so brand new. I have a chapter in this book. It's a great collection of articles by anthropologists talking about aspects of dreaming in different cultures, different traditions, and questioning some Western psychological assumptions about how we think of dreams and how we relate them to our waking selves and our waking lives. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, that's a book that kind of pushes back a little bit on kind of a hard neuroscientific approach and suggests maybe there's more cultural dynamics that go into the formation of our dreams as well. We never live in isolation. We're always raised in a cultural matrix. We live our lives in cultural matrices, environments, ecosystems, and anthropologists are actually really helpful in highlighting how the very nature of how we dream is shaped by cultural forces as well as whatever is going on in the brain. So as an example, I have a friend who's doing a doctoral program studying how film techniques influence people's dreams. How you can interpret people's dreams in some ways as mini cinematic creations, because people presently live in a cultural world in which cinematic experience is a profoundly shaping and influential medium, artistic medium. So that's another way of looking at this dream formation question. It's not just your brain. Your brain's involved, but maybe this is speculative, and I'll leave all this with this thought. But some people of a more mystical inclination would say that maybe the way in which our brains are involved with dreaming is the way a radio receiver is involved in transmitting a program. Like it's a medium, it's a filter, it's that which our dreams pass through to reach our waking awareness, but it's not necessarily the ultimate origin and cause, and nothing else may be involved. So these are still live questions, even as we learn more and more, and really just amazing things. In fact, where's a good book? This would be, if you're interested in sort of the neuroscience of dreaming, this would be the book I'd recommend. The Emergence of Dreaming. It's got a long subtitle. Mind Wandering, Embodied Simulation, and the Default Network. G. William Domhoff, he's emeritus professor of psychology at UC Santa Cruz, a good friend and mentor of mine. Really value his work. He runs a database that's an inspiration for mine called the Dream Bank. So dreambank.net is a great resource for the scientific study of dreams. My Sleep and Dream database, sleepanddreamdatabase.org, is very much inspired by Bill Domhoff's work, and he does a great job of laying out kind of the best neuroscientific evidence on current sleep and dream research. So for that approach to dream formation, he's a good source. So there we've talked a bit about dream formation. What about function? Many different theories and ideas, of course, including no function. Several people say dreams are just random neural nonsense, just the brain sort of working through its business, and it's kind of the equivalent of neural trash, just being taken out at the end of the day during the night. Also, again, this is something that is not new. That actually, if you go back in many ancient traditions and cultures, there is a recognition that some dreams don't mean much anything. They are caused, again, by indigestion, by a physical illness. So the idea that this is a modern insight isn't exactly accurate. Humans have long recognized that some dreams are less significant, but other dreams are more significant. And this, to me, is the interesting thing. And here I would bring in Carl Jung's work. This is Man and His Symbols, one of his last works. Jung was one of the first to emphasize the difference between what he called little dreams, which are kind of normal, ordinary, everyday type dreams. Maybe they mean something, maybe they don't, and big dreams, which are less common, but often are so memorable they're literally unforgettable, and they have meanings that just seem to never stop over time. They just seem to be overflowing with various kinds of meaning. So Jung is one of the people who would say you can't attribute a single function that's kind of a blanket one-size-fits-all model for all dreams. Different dreams might have different functions. And so this opens up the question, well, what might some of those other functions be? And through the course of history, there have been several that people have, in different cultures and traditions, have really revolved their interest around. Anticipating the future, prophecy, divination. Dreams are a way we humans have long tried to understand the uncertain things that loom in the future. What's going to happen with the crops, with the weather, with a relationship, with a war, with my health and my death. Dreams have been associated with that kind of future gazing activity in cultures all around the world. That seems to be one of their, at least what people believe, is one of their most important functions. Another cross-cultural and virtually universal function people have found in dreams is healing. The idea that dreams, particularly during times of stress, of crisis, of suffering, trauma, dreams will come forth to help ease a person's suffering, give them some sense of hope, of possibility, perhaps even open some possibilities for treatment, for care. And this, again, is sort of the basis of dreams as a resource in modern psychotherapy. This is something that is carried right through from ancient times into the present, where modern psychotherapists, and here I've got, where's Freud? So here's Sigmund Freud, the interpretation of dreams, kind of launched the modern psychological approach to dreams, and really emphasized their value in helping people understand themselves and their emotions, their family histories, their conflicts, unconscious aspects of their personality that are hard to accept. And this has become, a basic principles of much of modern psychotherapy. So this idea is, and it has ancient roots, and yet it's very much a part of our modern day life. So this idea of dreaming as having a healing value or healing potential. Another aspect of dreaming function is as a source of creativity, of innovation, of problem solving. And this comes out of maybe a little bit of the healing, where it's like trying to overcome a problem, overcome suffering and fear. Maybe in calmer times, that becomes a resource for creativity, for thinking of new ways of doing things, for new visions of beauty and of symmetry and aesthetics. Another aspect of dreaming that, again, we find in cultures around the world throughout history. And of course, again, something I've studied quite a bit, the role of dreaming as a source of inspiration for religious or spiritual pursuits. Virtually every religious tradition through history has been involved with dreams at some foundational way. Dreams have inspired particular faiths or traditions to emerge. They've given guidance to people at particularly difficult moments or moments of decision. Rituals around dreams have helped to kind of create long-standing communities. So there's a sense in which dreaming can be considered one of the experiential sources of human religion. This is the strong version of an argument I've been making over the years, that among the many functions of dreaming is to stimulate religious, spiritual, philosophical, metaphysical kinds of thoughts and reflections. What is the nature of the soul? What is the nature of life and death? How do good and evil relate? Is there a God? What is the nature of the deity? These are questions that through history have naturally arisen out of dreaming. And I believe that that's actually a function of dreaming. That's not incidental. That is actually part of the evolutionary dynamics of the nature of dreaming in our species, in the human species. So formation of dreams, function, a little bit there about the functions of dreams. What could we say about interpreting dreams? And as Bob said, we're not going to necessarily have time to interpret particular dreams, although I would encourage you not to shy away from it. Indeed, not only are we all innate dreamers, I believe we are all innate dream interpreters. We all have the wherewithal to make sense of our own dreams and the dreams of others. This is like so deeply ingrained in who we are as human beings, as beings with powerful brains, with powerful minds, with powerful imaginations, with amazing capacities for empathetic connection with other people. Dreaming and the sharing of dreams has been part of human cultural experience going back millennia, so as long as we have written records. So it seems a little weird in the modern world because, again, maybe you blame Freud for this, that that we think, oh, dreams are only about, if we try to interpret dreams, all we're going to find out is kind of deep, dark, unconscious conflicts and things like that. But actually, what dream interpretation can do is not is sort of, throw you into the muck of your unconscious. Although it can do that if that's where you want to go, but it can also be a profound source of self-knowledge, and a source of stimulation and creative excitement. And so I've got a couple other books here. So I was showing this to Bob earlier. So this is a book by a friend of mine, Craig Webb. It's called The Dreams Behind the Music. And what Craig does is gather, I think, a couple hundred stories of musicians, popular musicians, classical musicians, talking about dreams in relation to their musical creativity, songs that have been arisen out of dreams, different musical experiences and ideas and innovations. So this is another way that dream interpretation doesn't have to necessarily go in an analytic direction. It can be very valuable, again, in therapy, but that's a subset of dream interpretation, right? Like the therapeutic clinical approach to dreaming is valuable, but that's just one way of approaching our dream. In a natural, normal, healthy state, interpreting dreams can be a much more open-ended process. And so with that, like some people I know who get interested in this subject, they immediately they hear a lot about lucid dreaming and becoming conscious and aware in dreams. And so another book I thought I'd share that's on that topic that I think can be a real bracing discovery about what that really opens up is this book, A Dream Interpreted Within a Dream. Oneiropoiesis and the Prism of Imagination. It's even more complicated than that. It's a thick book too. It's a very thick book. Elliot Wolfson, scholar of Jewish mysticism, and he's both drawing on ancient Jewish methods of dream interpretation and starting in the Hebrew Bible, book Genesis, Joseph interpreting dreams. Later, the book of Daniel interpreting dreams. Like many religious traditions, Judaism has a long lineage of people who have been talking about dreams and trying to interpret their meanings in particular ways. And Elliot Wolfson's book is sort of the latest version of that, that kind of brings it into dialogue with lucid dreaming, the idea of consciousness within sleep, within dreaming, and this kind of paradoxical, mystical idea of interpreting a dream within a dream. This is where modern approaches to dream interpretation have tried to combine these ancient traditions with some modern insights and see if we can develop something new and something that's never been seen before. So with let me say a little bit more about interpretation, and then I want to say one more bit of things to say about dreams in kind of pandemic times, and then we'll get into some of your questions. So with dream interpretation, just in a general sense, it's almost always a good idea to think of the dream as emerging out of the context of an individual's waking life and emotional concerns. So what's going on with the person in recent life, their relationships, their feelings, their health, how are things at either school or work or whatever they do during the day. These are helpful details that can often give a sense of many of the elements that are appearing in a given dream. So and Freud referred to that as the day residue, the kinds of things that we see in our regular lives, and that's a good place to start. That's not the end of it, and it should be emphasized. That's the beginning usually of the process, because what that does is help you figure out, so what's not from ordinary, regular daily life? What in this dream is unusual, is unexpected, is bizarre? Dreams are actually pretty good at representing our ordinary, regular daily lives. They actually can replicate our waking reality when they want to, with pretty good accuracy. So what I'd suggest you ask is, when a dream shows something different going on, what might that be revealing? What kind of creative energy might be emerging in that image or that moment or that character? That's a way of approaching the interpretation of dreams, rather than seeing it as a magic 8-ball, like, do this or don't do that, this is what's going to happen or that's what's going to happen. Thinking of it as an opening into a part of yourself that raises questions that are worth your conscious mind reflecting on. A dream comes at a particular moment for a particular reason, I usually feel, and it's a reason speaking to that moment, usually in a person's life. So that's just a way of kind of opening up the process and allowing those energies to trigger your insights and trigger your intuitions. It's not a formulaic process, but if you're open to questions emerging and focus really on, I would say, the emotional dynamics. Dreams are often very accurate emotional barometers of our lives. And so, particularly over time and across a series of dreams, you may see emotional patterns that will help you understand what a particular dream might mean. And this is really, I think, a key point, is that as much as you can learn from an individual dream, you can learn even more from multiple dreams, from a series of dreams. So keeping a dream journal can be a great way of expanding your ability to interpret dreams. So here we are, mid-November almost, 2020. We've been living with a pandemic for more months than I can, what has it been, 9 months now, 8-9 months. And this is a collective event that has had an enormous impact on all of us in countless ways. One of the ways it has made a very tangible impact is on people's sleep and dreaming. And so I can give you a little bit of an update on current research on that and what we're learning. In some ways, this is like a perfect storm for disrupted sleep, right? There's this frightening thing happening out in the world that's driving us all inside. We our social lives, our work lives, our school lives, our family and travel, everything disrupted, sort of limited. We're bound. We're spending more time at home. And what else can we do but spend a lot of time in bed, more time sleeping or trying to sleep? Then we're disrupted. So what this all amounts to is pretty much of a recipe for what Rosalind Cartwright and her colleagues have called crisis dreaming, and crisis dreaming, using your dreams to solve your problems. It's a more serious book than that makes it sound. But the basic idea of Rosalind Cartwright, who's a epic sleep lab researcher from Chicago, done a lot of research on people who have had dreams during times of enormous stress, divorce, death, illness, natural disaster. And the common theme, and we're seeing this now, is how dreams can be a resource not only during times of personal crisis, but times of collective crisis as well. And so what I've been seeing in other researchers as well is a big rise. Some of this is not surprising, but we are seeing empirical evidence of it. Big rise in disrupted sleep, people reporting more dreams and more negative dreams. Early, just the first month or so of the pandemic, people's dreams were already surging. So there's a very direct kind of almost one-to-one relationship between the quarantine beginning and an upsurge of disturbed dreaming. About 2 months into it, it became very clear that not only was the pandemic itself, the virus, the health dangers, do I have it? Does a loved one have it? Those kinds of anxieties. On top of that, there came a whole new set of anxieties about masks and social distancing and public behaviors relating to the virus, right? So pretty quickly, people's dreams were being sort of spun around by all of these forces, by the health dangers, by the social, and then it became a political thing, and that of course then May 25th, murder of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter movement, protests, increase and expand in many places. That also has impacted people's dreams. That also has stimulated waves of anxious dreaming, in some cases hopeful dreaming, hopeful of that maybe we're raising issues that need to be addressed, but in many cases, another source of anxiety and concern, frustration, uncertainty. So this year, this 2020 year, has really been a remarkable year for highlighting how we are all dreamers, not just for ourselves, but for each other. That people's dreams are not only about their own personal welfare; they're about that for sure. But we also, and my fellow researchers and I are finding this in various studies, that we also have the capacity and indeed the instinct to dream for and about each other. That we are a dreaming community as well, and that during times of crisis like this, those dreaming capacities, they can help us. They can help us again with issues around healing, creative problem solving, empathetic understanding of other people, other ways of looking at the world, stimulating our imaginations, giving us hope for the future, that things can be different than they are now, that things we can go beyond what is to imagine something different, some things that might be. So with that, why don't I stop there? And Bob, maybe if you've got some questions that are brewing, let me know.
Great. Well, thank you, Kelly. Yes, and I do invite everybody, please post your questions and comments in the chat section. And don't let me, my earlier thing about dream interpretation scare you off, because if something is resonating with you, you've had a dream recently, and it has puzzled you or troubled you or caused you to think about anything in a different way, please feel free to share that as much as you want. I guess to kind of get things started, I mean, part of the impetus behind this program is the realization that dreaming is something that we all do. It's one of the few things that we share, and yet our experiences of it are very individual. And I think that that's what makes dreaming such an interesting topic. Kelly and I were talking before we went on about how dreams are one of the really great icebreakers at a party. You can get people talking about their dreams, and perfect strangers will open up. And I think that we are now all experiencing a kind of a collective series of events. And as you pointed out, Kelly, there's been a surge in dreams recently. I'm wondering if there's been any work done on how events like the pandemic or some of the other major events that have been happening in the past couple of months are affecting people outside of the United States. In other words, are we getting much data about how different cultures in different countries are experiencing dream activity?
Yeah, a little bit. Uh, there have been studies showing that people's sleep and dreams have been disrupted. For example, in China, in Germany, I believe, in Canada. Like there's pretty much everywhere people are looking. There's the same broad story is being told that this is uh, the impact is global and widespread. I'm guessing. I mean, and this so somewhat I'm guessing because the the nature of dreaming can be so culturally specific. So it's hard to generalize beyond a certain level of like being impacted. Like this, we can tell that some of the models that we researchers are using to understand what's happening with the pandemic are dreams during times of natural disasters, wildfires, hurricanes, earthquakes. There have been a few studies like this, and also terrorist attacks, 9/11 terrorist attack. There have been studies done in the aftermath of those events that have given us a little bit of a sense of what happens when some big bad collective thing happens. I shouldn't laugh, but like you can see this kind of shockwave of dreaming, ripple through a whole culture, and so we're starting to learn a little bit about why that is, how it happens, and this is unprecedented. Until you go back to 1919, I suppose, and so we're learning new things here. We don't even. I think it's still way early to be really sure that we understand even the full range of what our dreams are doing in response to this right now. But it's very clear that dreams have been activated and energized, and in many people's lives. Yeah.
I do recall hearing or reading something about one of the things that seems to be influencing the content of dreams recently is that there's, particularly when we're dealing with things like sheltering in place and people staying at home, that there's a lack of external stimulus. We're getting very we're getting fewer sort of outside inputs, and so for whatever reason, our subconscious seems to be working in overdrive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. And so one of the things I was mentioning earlier about how dreams have varying degrees of content that's maybe less meaningful, maybe a little more in the nonsense range, and others that are more clearly meaningful and relevant to our waking lives. And I'd say that the strongest empirical research on excuse me, the meaningfulness of dreams centers on our social relationships. Dreams are dreams over time are very accurate mirrors of our social relations, our family relations, our families, our friends, coworkers. And so what that I think tells us is that, among other things, one of the functions, I guess you'd say, of dreaming is to help us navigate our way through our very complex social world and relations. Now, what happens when we're deprived of that, right? What happens when we're deprived in our waking lives of that stimulation? I would say, I would have predicted, I think it would be fair to say it would be predictable that would have a bad effect, a negative sort of diminishing effect on people's dream lives, because just as you say, there's an absence of that kind of waking world experience. That actually, what I'm suggesting is our dreams are especially attuned to addressing and engaging. So to take that away in the waking world is a big blow to our kind of the diet of our dream lives.
Well, we're starting to get some really great questions here, and I want to make sure to get to
Sure.
some of those. I guess kind of building on something I mentioned just a second ago, but talking about dreams in other cultures. What does the research tell us about how different cultures, non-Western cultures,
Yeah.
maybe cultures where orality rather than the written languages maybe
Right.
emphasize? What does the research tell us about that?
Yeah. So many. I mean, uh, let me try to answer that by talking about shamanic practices through the millennium in various cultures. In many parts of the world, Africa, Australia, Native American cultures, transpolar, Siberian, Asian cultures, Tibetan cultures, there there are ancient practices that we think are related historically, but may just be spontaneous emergences of this innate capacity for dreaming that we have. And what seems to have happened is that over time, human communities have tended to generate in groups between 50 and 100 people, one or two dream experts. And we refer to them as shamans now. That's a shorthand term because that's other cultures use other terms, but shaman is a good term for this cross-cultural phenomenon of people who are sort of more intense dreamers than the average person. And so what this means is that in the kind of the human cultural experience, extraordinary dreaming is part of what we're about. And not everybody experiences that as often as a shaman does. But everybody's maybe got a little taste of it, a little sense, a little touch of it in their big dreams, what Jung would call their big dreams. So cross culturally, what we see are people who, in their capacity as shamans, they're healers. They use their dreams to help cure suffering, help people deal with illness. They're diviners. They anticipate. They look into the future to try to anticipate things that are of significance and importance to the community. They're teachers and priests and ritual guides, all stimulated by their heightened awareness of and ability to sort of draw energy from their dreams. So I'd say the quickest way to see the cross-cultural connections around the nature of dreaming, and not just in different countries of the world today, but like going back in history, is to think of those shamanic traditions and those shamanic practices and how they appear. They're people who have that expertise. Now I should just finish that up by saying not all cultures appreciate that. Indeed, some cultures find such people threatening and problematic and dangerous even. And this would be, quick comment on a big phenomenon, but some of the persecutions of witches and heretics of various kinds during the Christian Middle Ages can be attributed to some degree to people who had these kind of innate shamanic extraordinary dreaming abilities, just kind of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just a culture that was not appreciative of such things. On the contrary, was, like I said, threatened by them. So.
Right. What's interesting, and I think you mentioned Joseph,
Yes.
and his dreams. I mean, that was a sort of a double-edged sword too. That there's some wisdom there,
Right.
but then also
Right.
something to be a little bit worried about.
Right. Be careful with whom you share your dreams is one moral of that story. So be careful. Yeah.
So one question, building on something you just mentioned, Megan was curious about the reference you made to big dreams, and she's wondering what other resources you might recommend that can help her dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, so I held up one book by Jung. This is another one. This is a collection. How do I put this up best?
There you go. Yeah, there you
go. A collection of Jung's best papers on dreams, and he actually his description, is sort of original description of big dreams, appears in this book. a paper he wrote in 1935. I wrote a book a couple years ago called Big Dreams, where I talk about kind of current research, scientific brain discoveries, as well as ancient religious practices, to try to talk a bit about that. So it is I think a really important phenomenon in the study of dreams, and it's one way of answering a question that sometimes gets posed to me, and not always in a, shall we say, friendly form, which is, well, I never remember my dreams ever, so what value can dreams have, kind of like pushing right back at me. And it's like, that's fine, right? Some people don't remember barely any of their dreams. It's probably about 1% of the population, maybe even less, that never, ever remembers their dreams. So, that's most humans remember at least a few of their dreams every now and then. But all of us are forgetting the vast majority of what goes through our minds during the night. So my response to that is, yes, we're forgetting, all of us, lots of our dreams. That's okay. But there are a few dreams we don't forget. Indeed, we can't forget. They're so memorable, they're so vivid, they're so hyper realistic and intense. These are the dreams that Jung calls big dreams. And in my view, if we start research with those dreams, if we start our efforts to understand what dreaming is about, its formation, its functions, its interpretation, by looking at those dreams, not just at kind of average general dreams, that's fine. But at big dreams in particular, I think we learn a lot of interesting things about the nature and possibilities of our dreams. So yeah, big topic for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of those dreams that really do stand out, those dreams that make a strong impression on us, I think there's another kind of maybe a subset of those dreams, which are things that dreams that seem to extend over a long period of time. And Jim is asking about kind of a serialization of recurring dreams,
Right.
Dreams that are stretched out over a long period of time, perhaps months or even years.
Yeah. That's awesome. So my current project, who's that? That's okay. So you got the whole show tonight. This is awesome. That's Fireface back there. That's all three of our cats.
Nice.
Say your question again.
Well, just thinking about those dreams that do do make an impression, and some of those that seem to extend over a long period of time.
Right.
Sometimes it spool out over months or years.
Right. So in a way, recurrent dreams are a kind of big dream phenomenon, in that the same theme, the same scenario, the same complex of feelings and such comes back again and again and again. It breaks through the general amnesia we have about our dreams and makes an impression on waking awareness. And so I think that Jung and others have all agreed that studying dreams across a series, across a period of time, is really an excellent way to see these patterns emerge. You mentioned Joseph, right? So you go back, Joseph in the book of Genesis, he finally, long story, he gets in front of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh tells him, these dreams that he's had, to help me understand them. And one of the things Joseph says is, I give you this interpretation, and because your dreams have been doubled, that means the interpretation is sure. So again, going back to this ancient religious teaching, you can already see people recognizing that if something happens in a dream more than once, which I take as kind of the beginning of a series of recurrent dreams, it's an emphasis. It's kind of an underlining from the unconscious. This is important. This is like, pay attention to this. So, and this is where, this is a big topic. I'll just say briefly, this is where modern technologies of digital analysis, of linguistic analysis, are really exciting, because now we can gather large collections of dreams, a series of dreams, put them in a digital format, and identify patterns over time. And it would be very difficult and time consuming to do in a kind of hand coding kind of way. Just now, you just like tippity tap a couple of clicks of the keyboard, and you can discover really interesting things in a series of dreams. So this is a book I'm working on right now. It's called The Scribes of Sleep. It's about people who keep dream journals and follow their dreams over time, just as the question suggested. And I think that's in some ways the most exciting horizon for dream research, is looking at large collections of dreams like that, using both these new exciting technical gizmos and things, as well as insights from ancient cultural traditions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned technology, and we had a question about, and we talked about this briefly before we went on, about brain-computer interface and about where we are in terms, perhaps, of being able to capture or record or transmit these dreams. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this comes under the general heading of neuroimaging, trying to translate the neurological impulses of some going on in someone's brain, and representing those in a form that a third person, a third party perspective could recognize. And we're getting there. I think that is going to happen, and could happen quickly. These kinds of things sort of depends on, is somebody going to throw a lot of money at it at some point? Because the technology is there. I could write it out on a single page memo how to do it. It would just, each of those steps would cost lots of money. It would probably take lots of people to do. But it's all tools and technologies that are available. Same thing with virtual reality and dreaming. The ability to represent in a fully immersive 3D VR space the sensations, the settings, the interactions of a dream world. We're making huge advances on that front as well. There are some worrisome dystopic possibilities there that I think it's healthy to be mindful of, and building wise principles of respect and privacy and confidentiality into these new technologies. Like, we have the opportunity now to build those principles into the emerging tools that we're developing. So that's part of what I do with my database. And I would say that, last thing I'd say in response to the question is the success of those technologies to be able to literally have like a dream monitor, right? That you could watch someone else's dream. The ability of to achieve that is going to depend on a lot of basic scientific work around what are the fundamental patterns of dreaming itself. Before we can kind of make that neural to imagery translation, we need to know a lot more about just what dreams are. And so that we don't end up representing something that we were actually imagining is there and not actually what we're dreaming. So, but stay tuned, and there'll probably be some false starts and people making grandiose claims that it won't pan out. So there'll be a few years of, razzle dazzle, smoke and mirrors stuff. But the real research is happening, and at some point, I'd say 5 to 10 years, there'll be something that we would say, wow, that's cool. That's really getting there. So.
Edith had an interesting question, and I've wondered this myself, and it's more, I guess, kind of about the mechanics of dreaming, and she wonders if it's possible to dream in the third person. If we only dream in the first person, what are the implications for this?
Yeah. I think the answer is very definitely we do not always dream in the first person. There people will sometimes describe it as one of their big dreams, that they have a dream where their identity and point of view within the dream shift, is split, is embodied in another character, in a seemingly inanimate object, some omniscient, bird's eye point of view. Indeed, this is one of, I think, the one of the opportunities in dreaming is opening up and loosening kind of the hold of our strict ego perspective, and enabling an empathetic imagination capacity to allow us to take other people's perspectives, to see things from other angles. This is part of the kind of the broader imaginal themes of what I've been talking about with dreaming. Shoot, and I don't have a book here. I would hold up now a book called Michael Vinoy Adams on race and color in dreaming, and he talks about he had a collection of dreams of people dreaming of being different races, being whites dreaming of being blacks dreaming of being Hispanics of blacks, etc. As kind of a subgenre of dreaming, just kind of along these lines. So I would say that it's a rare aspect of dreaming to shift out of one's kind of normal, quote unquote, normal waking ego perspective, but it is not abnormal to do that. And indeed, it often is regarded by shamans, shall we say, as a valuable opening into other valuable possibilities in our dreaming experience. Yeah.
Well, that was fascinating when you mentioned that the work on race and dreaming, because as you were describing this kind of shift of perspective, I thought, perhaps it really is an opportunity for us to role play and to imagine what it does mean to be someone else in a relatively safe environment,
right.
And yet the implications there, I think, for kind of understanding that that empathy, that taking on another person's positionality, I think in the dream world is, given what you've mentioned about the connection between dreams and creativity and so forth. I think it's a fascinating area. I'm gonna look into that myself.
Well, dreams in this regard, I think are challenging us to become the bigger, greater wholes that we can become. And this is really an idea from Jung, I would say. And I bring up race. I mean, I could also bring up, here's where Freud would talk also about how dreams reveal aspects of our unconscious sexual dynamics that may not be part of our waking personality and the way we behave in our waking worlds, but are actually part of our broader psychic makeup as human beings. And dreams can remind us that you may not be that way in your waking life, but these are parts of being human. You have all these different aspects of yourself. Now, what it would be, I should have said this earlier, but an important theme, particularly in Jung, around the nature of dreams has to do with the idea of projection, and the idea that things don't always in dreams mean what they seem to mean. So to dream, say, of one's father might mean you're dreaming about your father. It might mean you're also dreaming about sort of the symbol of a father, or about authority, or about power in the world, or about your boss, or about the president, or about any number of things. That dream images and particular characters have many different layers. And so when we dream of someone, it's not necessarily about them. It may be, but it also is very likely about us. And so this comes up, I bring this up because people when they particularly have dreams involving racial differences, racial others, people who are different from themselves. Maybe they themselves embody a racial other. Uh, there are many dimensions of possible meaning to this, and people, I would say, shouldn't automatically rush to a literalistic idea like, oh, this means I really feel this, or I really am that, or there are these multiple dimensions that often involve aspects of ourselves. Again, what Jung would call the shadow side of ourselves, parts of ourselves that consciously we struggle with, and so our dreams will bring them up in forms that give us a way of starting to understand what's going on. If we just don't literalize them too quickly and think of them sometimes in symbolic, subjective terms like that, that can open up meanings that we can get hung up on some of the other dynamics.
So as always, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and other times it's not.
Other times it can be any, yeah. And this is, both and.
So Tori asked a question, and I'm curious about this too as it relates to dreaming. Any sights into deja vu?
Yeah. It seems to be a kind of a cousin of dreaming. It's an aspect of how our minds process time and causality and our perceptions, both consciously and unconsciously. So deja vu, the sensation that you've already seen something, or you've already been someplace, you've already heard something. I mean, there is an explanation that says that's just a mind slippage, that's a brain little malfunctioning. And again, with these kinds of phenomena, that can be the case. That some instances may be like that. I believe that there are also cases where a deja vu experience is a reflection and a recollection of a dream, a dream that happened that in a way anticipated a later waking experience or situation or scenario. So in that sort of uncanny sense of like, wait, I've been here before, this has happened before, is, you're asking me, so I wouldn't say this is a consensus view, but I would say that it's an invitation to reflect on what is the connection being made there between this moment in my waking life that's triggering this feeling, this kind of weird, unsettled feeling, and my life in this moment, like. There's a doorway opening up there into something that the unconscious has, for whatever reason, and again, it's often inscrutable, has highlighted as meaningful. And I guess this would be a general principle that I would share, kind of along the lines of interpreting dreams, deja vu experiences. Something else here, so there's something I'll show you. A book that I wrote with my mother a few years back called Dreaming Beyond Death, Pre-Death Dreams and Visions, and How to Understand Them. My mother is a hospice chaplain, and she and I wrote this book about the dreams and the visions that come before final days and weeks and hours of people's lives. And one of the themes in that book we discuss is how at a certain point, this question of the formation dreams, where do they come from? We don't know. Sometimes we just don't know. And so you just kind of sometimes have to bracket that out and ask, well, what does this dream make me feel? What kind of energy does it bring into my life right now? And so sometimes that's the important question to ask. And we don't know quite where, how ultimately to explain why this deja vu experience happened, why this weird dream happened. But we can ask a more pragmatic question, like, what is it making me feel right now? What ideas does it bring up? What insights does it bring to mind? What can I do in response to it? those are valuable questions that are, I can't promise anything, but I would suggest that if you honor those experiences by responding in that way rather than getting caught up in explanations, more insight will come than otherwise.
Interesting. Well, I mean, honestly, we could talk about this all night long, but
Sure.
I want to, I guess I want to wrap up by revisiting your invocation at the beginning of the evening, where you asked us to think of a dream that
Yeah.
that was meaningful for us, or that we held in some regard, and to maybe build on that as we move forward. I don't know about anybody else, but I suspect that tonight my dream activity is probably going to be,
You never know.
I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Things trigger,
Yeah.
your dream world. But as we move forward and thinking about, your request and being more aware, being more mindful, I suppose, if you can use that term, of our dreams, what would you suggest to the folks who are watching tonight and viewing, as far as being more aware, being more cognizant of the dream, the role of dreams in their lives?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. A great way to kind of give some shape to our conclusion here. So, again, let me share with you another practice found among shamans and shamanic cultures around the world and throughout history. And it's a kind of ritual that's intended to invite a revelatory dream. And the term that researchers in the West use is dream incubation. And the idea is that if dreams are so amazing when they just arise spontaneously, well, what might happen if we more mindfully prepared ourselves for them? We can't force our dreams to do anything, and some people may not remember any dreams now for a month. I mean, you truly can't force things, but you can invite them. You can create a welcoming environment. You can prepare a space mentally, physically, spiritually for a dream to appear and for you to receive it and make something of it. And so dream incubation is what we refer to for the rituals that are aimed at that. And there are dream incubation rituals in virtually all cultures around the world. Islam has a tradition called istikhara, which involves purification, prayers, sleeping in a certain position, and ancient Greek culture had temples throughout the Mediterranean devoted to the healing god Asclepius, who was basically the father of modern medicine, really, if you go back far enough. And people would come to the temples and sleep there and pray for dreams from the god. And practicing these kinds of rituals. So what I'm getting at is this is the kind of thing that you can practice yourself, kind of in the general sense of it. It works best. Most dream incubation rituals around the world and through history have involved three basic elements. There's a setting, and the setting is usually someplace not normal. So dream incubation can be practiced maybe when you're traveling. Well, nobody's traveling now, but so what I would suggest is creating a special space in wherever you sleep, making sure you've got a glass of water by your bedside, maybe the sheets are clean, you're wearing clean pajamas, got a candle by your bedside. In dream incubation rituals, there's often days and days of preparation and practice, but the goal really is just to focus your mind be in a setting that feels safe and comfortable. And then second step, an intention. What is it that you are inviting from your dreaming self? And this gets your question about the dream that I asked you to remember. An easy dream incubation question is, here's a dream that I remember. It's a big dream. It's a powerful dream. It's hard to understand. Can another dream help me understand this powerful dream a little bit better? That often is all you need to kind of create the focus and the intention that then you go to sleep with that in mind. And third step, upon awakening, whatever. Whoa. Jesus. Sorry, did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, that was two of my cats. Cut it out. Hey, Scoot. Get. Jeez.
Welcome to live TV.
Yeah, that was just two of them making a ruckus. Yeah, so just to wrap that up, so dream incubation as a way of creating a comfortable setting for sleep. The intention, I want to learn something about a dream. It could be a problem. It could be, I don't know what's going on with a relationship. It could be, I don't know whether to take a new job. Any number of things, but it's probably not like what's the winning lottery number going to be tomorrow, but like something that's meaningful and emotionally important. And a big dream is almost perfect because that's got a lot of emotion. And to go to sleep with that in mind, and then to have a pad of paper by your bedside so you could write down what you dream in the morning. And the ritual of that is important. The intentionality, the demonstrating to one's dreaming self that yes, my waking self, I'll listen, I'll take it seriously, right? That there seems to be a dynamic, a virtuous cycle that can get going. The more we pay attention to our dreams, the more they respond. And dream incubation rituals, starting with a dream like the one I suggested you think about, can be a really valuable way of getting that going.
And now that we have time and we're
indeed
aware of our immediate surroundings, might be a really good excuse to be more intentional about that. And to start those dream rituals.
Yeah, I would say now as much as ever, there is a way of that these kinds of practices can help create a sense of grounding, of centering of oneself, kind of getting in touch with what really matters, and managing, the challenges ahead. It's challenges remain, and we all need as much strength as we can muster, and as much again, I kind of come back to this point about empathy, about seeing things not just from our own personal ego point of view, but thinking about the world and our community more broadly, and being aware of bigger things going on than just what's right in front of our nose. That I think we need more of that too, if we're all going to get through this. So
yeah. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being a part of this program tonight. I know I've been writing down furiously notes, and I've been posting some of the titles that you've mentioned, so that folks can also check those books out. And I know I'm going to be doing some exploration on my own. So this is
great. I hope so.
This has been insightful for me, and I hope for everyone who's.
I hope so. No, I appreciate the questions. There are a lot of those are exactly the right questions to be asking, and I'm not hard to find on the web. So anybody wants to follow up, feel free.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Kelly has a blog on Psychology Today, so check it out. And he's got several different columns recently talking about the relationship between dreams, and there was a very interesting one about wildfires. So that one, if you're at all interested in looking at that relationship between our dream world and what's happening in the outside world, particularly as we began processing and as we've been processing so much recently. Definitely check out Kelly's writings. And again, thank you so much, Kelly. And we will see everybody back here in January. We'll, of course, probably see folks before then, but we'll see everybody back here January 19th for Honest Mojani. So good night, everybody. Be safe and happy dreaming.
See ya.